seconds. 10 seconds of my voice sent to an AI agent, compiled there, and doing a phone call to my wife. And I'm pretty sure it would need a few seconds, a minute, until my wife will recognize that's not the real Sascha Beck. We are talking about AI and what's beyond the hype today. So really warm welcome. I'm Sascha Beck, leading the financial service sector for GFT, and I'm your host today. Later on, I will introduce our great panel guys, and we have prepared a few slides as an introduction to this important topic. What do we see in the market at the moment? 75% of all decision makers in the financial service sector have put AI as their strategic most important initiative. There's lots of money in the market, major investments with AI. But only 25% see already a real outcome of it. So we are in the pilot phase, trying out a few chatbots, but not the real major topic where AI is changing our sector, changing the world. Early adopters, 27% are only early adopters. They report, okay, I can see a return of investment. I can see a major change in my business behavior. But what's next? What's next is the major question of our today's panel discussion. What else do we see in the market? We see that many of our clients, of the clients in the market, are doing pilots, POCs, proof of values, and only the small red topics, you can see the columns there where something is real life in production. So we are really at the beginning of the AI change in our sector. You can see the clients also of GFT on the left side, or it's on the right side of you, it's on the right side. You can see, okay, they are doing something. They have an AI agenda, they will do something, they have chatbots in place, they are doing code development with AI. So this is really interesting. But there are roadblocks, and there's a fear in the market. The data quality is a major issue. Then regulation, we will talk about the AI Act, the influence of US and China, and what is happening in Europe today. And this leads to the gut feeling, so, oh, what should I do as a decision maker of a large bank or as a leader of an insurance company? That's risky. Data is the foundation. Without a good data layer, it's impossible to have a good AI in place. So it's necessary to work also on that and to adopt things, to be an early adopter. What is important? Focus on the high impact topics. Prioritize, do a roadmap, do identify the use cases of high value and of benefit for your company. We see it's important to bring tech and people together, to make them play with AI, to introduce new tools. Adopt, help and support the people which are responsible for IT, for business processes, for call centers, for back office, because these areas are the major areas where AI has a large influence. Looking ahead, what is next? What do we see in the market upcoming? There is the trend of hyper-personalization, of offers, of front ends, of selling products to end clients. We see embedded in AI agents. We'll talk about that today. What is the next call center? How are clients interacting with companies? And for sure, AI-driven ecosystem, the next level beyond the hype at the moment. Ecosystems with fintechs, with other partners. We are supporting there a lot at the moment. So therefore, I want to bring these insights also to you today. What is my wish and my recommendation for you as a leader and important people in your company? Freedom, agility, support. Also establish a kind of framework of governance where you can try, where you can adopt, where you can test something with AI and enable the teams to work with AI and to do the things which are necessary. As GFT, we are one of the largest players with AI in the market, one of the leading companies, I would frame it that way, and we have developed the House of AI. Coming from the last thing, we have the core business understanding. We know how a bank is organized, how an insurance company is organized, and we have in place our consulting colleagues. Then we are coming with the AI-led strategy we have, where we have ready-made 150 use cases to improve the processes for banks and insurance companies, our AIX framework. We have technology partnerships with all important players in the market. We are really agnostic and here to support you. We have a team of experts which can do the technical implementation. And for sure, we are focusing on a measurable return of investment. This is important. There has to be a benefit which we are focusing on. So, you can get in touch with me. You can scan it. We have a kicker tish over there. My wonderful colleagues are also here and happy to discuss and to support you. And now, I would really love to introduce you to the wonderful panelists of today, without AI, without chatbot, and so on. So in real life, I would really love to welcome Stephan Paxmann here on stage. And please give him a round of applause. Stephan Paxmann is the Chief Innovation Officer at LBBW, one of the early adopters of AI and many, many more things. So I'm happy to have you here, Stephan. I would like to follow up with Christian Weil, Head of Digital Office at BNP at ABN AMRO and Bethmann Bank. So that's correct. Hi. Now going to Switzerland. It's a bit of an ESC. So Dr. Sina Wulfmeyer. She is CDO and Head of Financial Service at Unica. Good to have you here.
Hello. Yeah.
And Switzerland is really familiar and popular for money, so therefore we have Sebastian Becker also here. He is partner at Redalpine Venture Capital. Hi, good to have you here.
Geht's so?
So, Stephan, let's start with you. Because last year you were also participating with LBBW here in the panel. You are one of the largest sponsors of Frankfurt Digital Finance, so really a pleasure to have you here. When you're comparing 2024 and 2025, what is the major impact of AI? What has changed the world? What is your view at the moment?
I think the biggest change is that you don't have to argue anymore. Because what we see that a lot of people basically said, well, if AI and especially generative AI is really changing the way how we're going to work, I doubt it, no, I don't believe it, and can prove that's over. So the question is not whether it changes everything, whether it's a paradigm change, but the question is when and how. And that is something we also see within our bank itself, talking about business impact, talking about the feasibility of AI services, what you can do. We actually try not to engage just on a business case basis or to define business impact by real numbers, because simply nobody knows it yet. And that's the point. We all know that it will change, but to which extent it will change, absolutely unclear at this point in time. You can always take the 30%, McKinsey's 30%, it will always increase by 30%. But basically, we have to prove it. We have to get experience. And I think this changed to last year. So there's no doubt it already changes everything we are doing. But the question is, to which extent and how can we engage at a certain speed?
So, Sina, you were also participating last year on a panel discussion and 1 year later, you have been in Davos a few weeks ago. What is your impression coming from Davos, seeing the AI discussion, coming from Switzerland? What's your view on the AI market 1 year later?
I think, AI is everywhere, right? Everybody's saying this. If you walk in Davos, everywhere is AI agents, AI governance, changing the world. Huge investments in this area, right? And we heard from the US, but also now in Europe, huge investments going into this topic. So, I think there's a lot of hype, and we should discuss also what's after the hype, how it's measurable, does it have impact? And I think we all have different views on it. And I think we are still learning in the beginning, so we are still learning also how to deploy, on which scale. I don't know, which models should we work with, larger, smaller, on-prem, in the cloud. So I think a lot of open questions still. Yeah. We have some more experience than last year, but I think even more questions than last year. What's the right strategy?
Sebastian, the speed is so enormous in the market at the moment. We have seen the DeepSeek topics in the market. What's your point of view from a venture capital side?
AI is a generational opportunity. And AI is right now on the way to disrupt the whole software stack, so many software companies that we know today. And it will also have a massive productivity boost for companies that are able to adapt it. So I would say you really need to dive deep into it and see what the risks are to your business, and also use it to boost your business. Otherwise, you will probably lose.
Also, for you, Christian, leading the digital office for Bethmann Bank, so older clients, lots of money in the market. What's your view? What are your topics at the moment?
Yeah, that's right. I think we are a traditional player. I'm working with ABN AMRO, and with our brand name Bethmann Bank, we are operating in the wealth management sector. This sector is pretty much known for a very personalized and also centric approach. So this will stay key, I think, also in the future in order to drive a successful business, in order to attract new clients and also retain them. However, I see in AI a lot of opportunities in unlock even more potential in order to be even more successful in the future. When it comes to opportunities, you can always see that, I think, from two sides. First one is from the client side. As being a very client-centric, I would start there, but maybe let's start this time here also for the audience from a bank perspective. I think with AI, we have really the opportunity to overcome industry challenges. What are, from my point of view, the industry challenges? Maybe not an exhaustive list, but first, it's the increasing cost base that we are all facing due to regulation, due to IT costs. And number two, also growth. We just heard it this morning that growth is a big topic. We need to attract new clients also in the wealth management part, and I see a lot of opportunities there and also in retaining clients.
If I may just take this on, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Because especially when we talk about growth, how are we going to manage this with demographic change we are all facing? Not even getting people into the bank who actually do it. So we get a reduced kind of population within the bank. So therefore, we have to use Gen AI in order to be able to fulfill the same productivity level with less people. Not because we want to get rid of people, not at all, but we simply don't get them anymore. That's exactly what I say. If you want to talk about growth, we have to talk about the efficiency gains by Gen AI. Sorry, Sina.
And I think what we also see is that on the client side, clients also use AI. I think that's an interesting aspect, right? They don't come uninformed, for example, to like a client meeting, right? Usually they already entered it in some AI, what's the recommendation for sustainability investment in Vietnam. So when they come to the relationship manager, also the relationship manager needs to be upskilled in terms of to respond to new client needs, and not only about growth, but also securing existing clients. I think that's an interesting perspective which we haven't seen so far, that also AI upskills the clients or the client's knowledge. Maybe not always perfectly, right? It's AI, but at least they come with some type of knowledge to the meeting.
We always call it's a democratization of knowledge, a democratization of abilities, because everybody is suddenly a super mathematician or a super geologist. So that's the point. So you really democratize everything.
Sebastian, what is your point of view from the talent market? Because we are discussing talent and data and the importance of IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
What's your impression coming from many discussions with potential new players in the market, established players in the market? What do you think?
So I think In Europe, we have a lot of talent. We have some really great universities such as ETH Zurich, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. So a lot of talents coming from there. But we have two problems in Europe. One is the regulation, and the second is the funding. And the problem with the regulation is that you over-regulate in AI, and therefore you can't use specific services. Just to name an example, OpenAI, they announced the operator, so that can autonomously use your browser, and you can do like tasks with it. But nobody in Europe can use it because they don't know if they comply. Yesterday, I was talking to a really good founder from Germany, and he's now building in New York, and I'm asking him, hey, what are you doing? Are you doing something new? And he pitched me a super exciting idea. I said, like, where are you building it? And he said, like, in New York, because in Europe, he's scared of the data privacy issue. So we see a lot of great talent building in the US. That's the first thing. And the second is the funding. So unfortunately, many of the great innovators and startup founders that we talk to are even considering going to the US earlier than before. Previously, was it that you get your first investment rounds in Europe, then you build your company, and at one point you go to the US in order to go global. But right now, we're talking to companies that are even considering to not build in Europe, but start right there, because they're throwing a lot of money at them. And I can also understand their side. So you get a lot of money for just your idea at a high valuation. Maybe it doesn't work out, maybe it does, and if it works out, you dilute it way less. And so we have a drain of talent, unfortunately, to the US. So we need to deregulate and have more money here in Europe.
Okay. Let me maybe also comment a little bit on the regulation. You can always see the, like black and white, I think, like the Chinese and the Americans are inventing, and we are rather occupied in basically regulating. You can argue like that. I think we need to be very cautious that we are not over-regulating. I think that always stifling transformation and also innovation. However, you also need it from a need to see it from a client perspective. With regulation, I think there comes certain kind of client advantages. AI literacy, for instance, when you talk about the AI Act, also when we talk about prohibited AI use cases, I think that's in the benefit also in the clients, for the clients. And when you see what is happening in the US, sometimes I think from a client perspective that is also beneficial.
Yeah. Maybe if I can comment on this, so I agree. However, if you have a free market and innovation coming up, this will also solve problems for clients. So we invested in a company that's called Lange AI, and they're great company yes. from Zurich, and they're helping to build a security layer around AI. And now, like a very major, I can't announce it today, but a very major big bank from the US is using them because the customers are using a chatbot. And if you have like a normal chatbot with an LLM behind, it can be that you prompt inject them, so you get information out of the company that you don't want to provide, or this chatbot can hallucinate and give you information that are not there. So there are also innovations, and companies tackling client-facing issues that are rising up. Obviously, sometimes regulations is good, but I'm very much on the side of deregulate as much as possible here in Europe.
Stephan, working for a large traditional regional states bank, doing lots of innovation, because now you are the head of innovation, so to say. How do you organize that? What's on your agenda for this year, and how can you handle these governance, regulatory topics and also drive the business forward?
Well, in my personal opinion, let's be frank. Before we reach the level of regulation, which is which is hindering us developing something, it takes a couple of more years. We are not there at this point. If you just think about where to use Gen AI at this point in time for efficiency, for processes, for conversational AI, so we still can develop 2 to 3 years without having any issues with regulation at this point in time. So therefore, sometimes I'm a bit annoyed by many people say, oh my goodness, European regulation, German regulation, we can't do anything. I think that's bullshit. Sorry, rubbish. Because it's not true. So if you just try to do something, what we actually have to do, we can already achieve a lot of activities. That is exactly the point what we do within LBBW. Within the bank, we try, of course, to stick to certain kind of overall regulation, but we try to be really more entrepreneurial-like. So we think about what could we add for new GenAI services, what are the use cases, where can we change the typical behavior. So that's the reason why we think about how to use internal data for any kind of GenAI processes. And not just GenAI, or using GenAI for old processes, but to reinvent the way how we work. That's what we do for credit applications, for example. That's what we do on the conversational side on the call centers. And that's the point. So there are a lot of topics we can do without even scratching at the regulatory part. So therefore, let's face on the things we are able to do. And I'm pretty sure, and I do agree, Sebastian, I don't like some of the other activities either, what we do on the regulatory side, but that will change over time because we will see in Europe that something is not working and they will react.
Okay, jumping from LBBW to Bethmann Bank. Christian, what's on your AI agenda?
We are currently focusing, and you might think that a traditional player is maybe not using currently AI at all, but we already do since a year. Currently focusing pretty much, I would say, on the efficiency side, as also Stephan said. So basically improving processes and also automating stuff in order to enable our advisors, for instance, to have more commercial time in the benefit of the client, I would say. Yeah. What is coming later, I would say, is basically also using internal data for inventing new processes and make the best out of AI. So that's basically what I see as being next. Mm.
Sina, many of these large models are based on huge amounts of data. What do you think about data quality, data protection? How should we bring the things together in the future?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because data is close to my heart, so I'm happy it comes back now through the back door of GenAI. But I think everybody now slowly realizes GenAI is only as good as the data we have, and I mean GenAI has the possibility now to also use unstructured data, I think, which is a big plus because in a lot of banks you have a lot of unstructured data like client calls, meeting notes, and this now can be leveraged. So I think that's a big plus. But I think one of the challenges we see at the moment is like how do you ingest these documents, these conversations into AI tools? And a lot of our data science work goes into understanding documents. So if we think about financial services documents, right, you have charts, you have tables, you have text. And for all of these, there's a nice special LLM that does the best job. So also orchestrating different LLMs to do the job for understanding data is also something that you have to play around, test different services. I mean, hyperscalers have services, but they're not as good for financial services data. So I think this is where data comes into play. And for me, this is really the core of GenAI applications. It's not solely the output, but what input do we put in and how does the model understand it, or various models. It's not only one.
Mm-hmm. Sebastian, there are large players in the market, smaller players coming up. From your perspective, what is attractive for you and why? The larger ones or the smaller ones?
I mean, for us, the smaller ones, because if you invest earlier, you can make more money in the end. But I think your question goes in the direction of you have those big, large language model providers, such as OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. And what we find interesting as an investment case, so my opinion is that those LLMs, they will all be commoditized in the future. We see this already happening. DeepSeek is a great example. And so the big value capturing that is happening is with the applications. Yeah. So for example, what you guys are building. If you have customer-facing applications, better UX, UI, to believe that OpenAI will be the everything company is bullshit, in my opinion. So that's why we are looking at application layer technologies and also middleware. And middleware is what I define as this Lakera company from Zurich, which is doing security, and the application layer on top are, for example, services, what you are building.
Changing from a venture capital and from an IT company and data company to the banking sector. When you are thinking about new partners, changing your banking operations and so on, how do you find the right partner? Stephan.
Well, first of all, I think it's important that we as banks, and I think we all think in the same way, we have to do it by ourselves first, because otherwise we don't understand it. And if you don't understand a certain topic, then you can't tell who else could support you. But then on the second side, once you know exactly what you know, what you don't, and what you can do, what you can't, then you have to look for partners who already have some proven experience. However, that's tricky in this business of Gen AI because it's still a very new topic. But what we actually try to do is also adapting some partners who already developed a couple of things in their own companies. So rather than talking about something I just read about, we talk to people who have already done it. So and by that way, we also try to kind of partner it so that we can build our own internal knowledge together with our partners. Just buying in some services, some know-how, I think that doesn't help. And then you're completely reliant on other people and other companies. That's too dangerous. So I think that's important, building up your own experience, investing in your own experience, even if it takes a bit longer. But on the long run, that's really the way how it should be.
Maybe to quickly add, I think what's also important is that we don't miss out on collaboration, because I think also banks could collaborate on topics or use cases where they don't differentiate, right? In back office activities, I think they can also be commonly developed. So this is what we do with some banks. So the non-differentiating part you can also co-develop. Then you get a discount, right? Because if 3 or 4 banks do it together, it gets cheaper. So I think this is also an aspect that we could think of, right? That collaboration on non-differentiating topics, for example.
Absolutely.
I think it's sometimes overlooked, and every institute does their own topic, but I think there's also a common ground, right?
I may also add on the
early adopter or fast follower.
We've always been in private banking, I think, more or less the follower, to be honest, in the past. When it comes to technology, I think that has something to do with our clientele, also affecting us as a bank on how we behave. But it was also more or less, I think, a little bit business case driven, because we have less, basically, business cases or less clients for some business cases. But that's now changing, I would say. Why is that changing? We in the industry, in wealth management, we are also confronted with degrade wealth transfer, for instance. So basically, in the next upcoming years, a lot of wealth is also inherited, leading to a next generation of clients. We see next generation between 40 and 60 years old, so that might be a little bit different than your definition of that. But I think that's one part of the story, and also inheriting wealth always means that you have smaller tickets in the future, because you're not inheriting to one person, mostly you inherit to several persons, and that's leading to smaller tickets and also to a lower margin, I would say. So that's why we also need to tackle efficiency there.
Sina, now the AI Act is live. What will change in the future?
I mean, I think we need to all work on transparency, risk management, but I would say this is inherent in bank anyway. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a regulated industry. There is lots of investment into compliance, risk management, security. So I think if you look at the industry as a whole, I think we're well prepared for the AI Act. I mean, we need to upskill when it comes to AI literacy and training, right? Upskilling the people. I think that's an open point, yes. But when it comes to documenting risk management, I think there's already good structures in banks that you could leverage. So I'm not that pessimistic about it. And I think, you know, get started and then figure out the rest. Because I told you earlier, I had one bank coming. They said, like, let's first tackle the EU AI Act and upskill our people before we deploy a use case. I think that's the wrong order, right? We should start with a use case, maybe a small one, uncritical data, and then we learn what we need to adapt in our existing processes. But I think bank processes per se are good and well equipped for this Gen AI age. That's my view. Maybe somebody shares a different view.
And that's always the problem, right? A little bit when you roll out Gen AI applications, you always go from basically the solution to the problem. Normally, you should do it the other way around. Yes. Basically, looking for problems. Okay, what are the best solutions for that? So that's a little bit risky, and also in our approach, I would say, finding ex post the right use cases. Yeah.
And I think you have to do it in parallel. That's what we did also at LBBW. We started really with a complete board executive session just on training Gen AI. So we sat together for 7 hours, just the board and 2 people, our IT board member and myself. And we just spoke about Gen AI. What is it really? We had some partners really helping us how to do a kind of a no-code, low-code environment development of a language model. And suddenly the board understood what it really means. And that's what we did with a lot of other people from the executives down to the operational people, explaining what AI is able to do and what it's not able to do. And in parallel, and then exactly as I say, starting with use cases, then you could always prove if the use case actually a reality, does it work, and the people get educated by applying those use cases. I think it's nothing one should do one after another. It's something you have to do at the same time, and then you get a really good acceptance of Gen AI. And people don't exaggerate. And exactly as I say, so Gen AI is doing everything. Whenever you spoke to somebody last year, okay, Gen AI will solve it. And that's not true. But you have to educate people and prove it with use cases. And that's the best way how to establish it in a bank.
Yeah, we at ABN AMRO call that digital adoption. I think that is key for having that successfully rolled out.
Yeah.
Okay, now we see the German banking market. You are flying around the world and meeting new startups and companies in the sector. Without EU AI Act, it's not necessary. We can push forward and we need money to invest.
Yes.
Can you compare these messages and what we are doing in Europe with the messages you see worldwide?
I mean, what I just heard in this discussion, that we need to tackle the EU AI Act, and I think it's so stupid that we put a regulation on something that we don't that is changing so fast that it's doing right now. So every few months, the world of AI looks completely different, and we put a regulation on it. But I'm cautiously optimistic from this week. What's happening in Paris? So a lot of strong commitments, so Macron attracting a lot of money for France, and also at least some industry leaders committing to 150 billion investment in all over Europe with the AI leaders commitment, or what it was called. However, if you see the difference, the order of magnitude, it's like in the US there was the Stargate commitment, 500 billion by 3 or 4 companies, and here it's like 150 billion by I don't know how many, 10s, 20, 30, 40, whatever.
Okay, so are we behind the wave? Are we on the wave, riding it, or are we looking what is the next wave?
I think we are only at the beginning. As you just said in your slides, last year was the year of experimentation. So we also saw a lot of startups that had great initial tractions, like 1 million of revenues, with a lot of proof of concepts. People tried things out. A lot of things didn't go so well. And this year, people are quite convinced and have actually budget to spend. So this year will be super interesting and important for the industry. But there's a huge opportunity in like use cases on automations that you bring to companies. And we really believe that in the future there will be a few billion-dollar companies run by a handful of people.
Maybe to add on Sebastian's point, I think besides the money difference between here and the US, it's also a mindset, right? I mean, this can-do attitude, this willingness to fail that they have in the US, I mean, we're missing here, right? I mean, I talk to a lot of banks and they see the potential, but then I think always the second or third question is, what about security and the EU AI Act? And I think it's also a mindset which we need to adopt, that we think a bit bolder and broader. And it's not inherent in German or Swiss mindset, so we need to learn this, that we think a bit bigger and go a bit bolder while managing the risks.
Which wave are you riding?
Well, actually, I would say, well, if you look at waves into the ocean, there's not just one wave, there are a couple of waves. So we're definitely behind the first wave, because that's basically taken by the Americans and maybe by some of the Asians. But nevertheless, there will be some more waves. And now we can really prove that with some other activities, when we talk about use cases in a proper way, that we really jump onto the second or onto the third wave. So therefore, I wouldn't say, no, we are lost, because they invested so much money and they invest another 500 billion. Well, first of all, you have to spend those 500 billion. That's not that easy. So therefore, we are still quite off in the market. And just compare, we've got 420 million people in Europe versus 350 million in the US. So if we focus on European solutions, so we are not out of the market yet. That doesn't mean that we will be in the market. We have to do something. Therefore, Paris is really important. It's very important. And I hope we pick it up over here in Germany. But nevertheless, let's not focus on creating language models. Let's focus on creating use cases with a business impact for the European market.
100%, 100% agree with you. And DeepSeek, is the best example and motivator that could happen. because everyone thought, oh, this market is taken by OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. And then DeepSeek comes along, and you can achieve a lot more, or a lot with a small, focused, smart team. And we definitely have the brain capacity in Europe.
And there will be many more DeepSeeks in Europe, in Africa, in South America. So I'm pretty sure.
Christian, how to find the right DeepSeek? How to invest the money and on which wave?
Yeah, that's a good question, but coming maybe back to your question, where are we? I think also looking at the hype curve, we are already behind the peak, because companies are basically recognizing now, okay, maybe the expectation were too high, we cannot realize those use cases and benefits that we targeted. So I think we are maybe behind the first wave, maybe behind the first peak, but when you look at the curve, after that it's also going up when we tackle that.
And what with the risk of deepfakes and so on, from a banking perspective? Maybe, Stephan, you could start with your impression.
That's definitely a topic, and we haven't got a solution yet. I mean, in the AI Act, we basically agreed, also in the United Nations Declaration of last year, that we have to mark AI content with AI generated. So the point is, a lot of other companies, governance will not do it. So now we come exactly to the point, Sina, as you say, we have to change the mindset. When do we accept content? We only have to accept content if we see a kind of watermark behind it, if it proves where it comes from. If there's no watermark, if there's no proof, then we should not accept it. But that's a completely different mindset. I mean, think about what you do on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on TikTok. You always accept everything you see. But we have to change our kind of aspect to it. We just accept something if you see proved by a trust center, whoever that is. And this will change the way how we accept deepfakes. Because if our CEO is suddenly in the press with no kind of declaration, I would definitely not trust him. But we have to learn this. And that's, again, a different behavior. So don't trust the Tagesschau or Tagesthemen if it's not a proof. So we need to get used to proofs. That's the only way, for this point in time, how we can really ensure that we don't follow deepfakes.
Because in your business is based on trust between people with money and advisors and so on. How do you handle the risk of deepfakes? And maybe an additional question, what is the next AI wealth management?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. I do not have an answer yet on that, but I think also what Stephan was saying, I think that's another pro-argument also for having at least some regulation in place in the benefit of the client, in the benefit also of the banks and companies, because an unregulated market is leading to this kind of risks, which is not beneficial for all sides, basically. So my statement always is, do regulate, but do not over-regulate. Do it with a certain kind of practical, I think, orientation, so all can benefit from that.
Okay. Maybe to add, I think at the moment we still have the statement that there needs to be a human in the loop. So all these AI systems cannot at the moment autonomously decide, I don't know, make an investment portfolio, automatic transactions. I mean, we're far away from this. And at the moment, there's always a relationship manager or somebody from the compliance team who needs to check the content. And I think this will remain for a couple of years, the statement or the state of the art. So I don't think this changes very soon. I mean, now talking about agentic AI and having all workflows automated, I mean, this becomes even more crucial, right? That somebody at some point in time needs to check what are these agents doing? Are we within the boundaries that we set? And this cannot be done technically. I think so far we need people doing this, and this is also why we don't have to be afraid that banking jobs will be killed tomorrow, because we need also people to check if the AI is behaving as it should.
Would you invest in deepfake companies?
Not creating deepfakes, but
Detecting,
the security layer. It's quite interesting. I think the idea of fake checking in the internet and building a company around it is there since many years, but now there's a real application for it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So Switzerland is a partner country of the Frankfurt Digital Finance for this year. Maybe Sina, may I ask you, when you have the Switzerland glass on it and you compare Switzerland to Germany, is there a difference or not?
I mean, I live in Switzerland, but I'm German, I have to say, so I need to now a diplomatic answer.
Same for me.
You're next, by the way.
No, I would say, and I'm very open about this, I think at least from a mindset perspective, Switzerland seems fairly open. I guess because it's a small country, they have to be open. And I mean, also in Zurich, we see a lot of AI talent now at ETH, a lot of US companies coming to Zurich, so OpenAI opened their office there. Microsoft now builds an AI center there, so lots of, I mean, Google has been there for many years, so also a lot of American companies coming to Switzerland. So I think in general, the Swiss population, the Swiss companies are more open to AI and more willing to try out. I mean, they're also worried about regulation, security, compliance, but I think it's a bit less than here. So I think in Germany, first is, whoa, we heard about this, but what about your security? And I think in Switzerland, it's a bit the other way around. Not generally, but I think it's what I see from time to time.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland is not part of the EU, so there are some regulations that don't apply there, which gives some freedom. We have extremely good universities there, and I can tell you that when I was opening our Berlin office for our fund, and now I'm doing the London one, but I spent a lot of time in Zurich, that when I was in Berlin, not that many US investors were calling me. Like now every week somebody's saying like, hey, I'm coming to Zurich. Hey, I'm coming to Zurich. Let's meet. So something is happening there, 100%.
Stephan, you have 2 kids when I'm in front right?
Yes.
How do they use AI? What is happening at home?
I mean, they are really lucky because I always get all the devices into the house and they can use ChatGPT from the first moments on. But basically, they are just growing up as normal as we grew up with calculators. So ChatGPT, Perplexity, PoAI, we are using some others. That's just standard. And they are just asking themselves, why should they do a kind of research by themselves and writing it down if AI can do it? And I always try to teach them, well, you can do everything using Gen AI. I absolutely support it, and I tell you how it works. But the interpretation, the semantics, that's something you have to learn by yourself, because that's something we don't get at this point in time, at least from the language models. And that will basically give you the value later on, why people ask you to do something, not somebody else. So applying Gen AI is something I think every kid has to learn from the very beginning, because we will not get rid of it. Absolutely not. So therefore, let's not stop it. Let's use it, but let's focus on the things where we as humans are really great in. And that's semantics, that's another kind of logic, and the emotional bindings.
Okay. Christian, do you have also a favorite application?
Yeah, my favorite application is Perplexity. You just mentioned it. Because there it's also a Gen AI application where you can also check sources. That's the big advantage, using also different kind of technologies behind it. Yeah, I also have 2 kids, but they are 6 and 7 years old, so they are currently not using AI, but in the future they certainly will.
And if I just may use this, Flux Pro is just great from Black Forest, from Schwarzwald. They are really doing a lot of graphic and image creations. And I think they're also part on the new LLM models out of the US. Really good company. So Flux Pro I can just recommend. And I've no shares with them.
So it's important that you get a few insights here. Sina, what is the next hottest shit in the market?
I think, I mean, everybody talks about agentic. This was also the topic in Davos. I think, I'm trying to explain simple what an agent is, right? That there is a workflow. You have different language models. So one language model, for example, defines steps and says, like, look for documents, summarize the document, give me a Word document as an output. And then there's another large language model, for example, who does the reasoning and say, hey, you're doing good, you're doing bad. And then, I mean, you can kind of imagine there's an interplay between different large language models. So I think this is the next level, these agents or agentic AI, but not fully autonomous. So the steps have to be defined. There needs to be certain boundaries where the agent can behave. But I think that's the next big thing, and we'll see a lot of development in that area. Also in the security space, I would say, how to guardrail this type of agents, especially for banks, we need this, but I think this is what we're seeing. We also at Unique, we're experimenting, for example, with a KYC process, so know your client process, that this can be done by a fully onboarding agent, collecting the documents, checking the passport, answering the questionnaire, and even giving you a management summary, for example. That would be a typical example. I mean, we're still experimenting, but I think this is where it could go.
And you've won the FinTech Award.
Yes, we did.
So. What's your favorite AI tool, and what's the next thing in the market?
No, I mean, by profession, I need to try out all kind of stuff, but I think personally, I'm a great user of ChatGPT, actually, or one for the reasoning stuff. I think it's great. But when it comes to the market, so we not only invest in software companies, but we also invest in deep tech. And we think robotics, a lot of stuff will happen. Also building the software stack around to drive robotics. We recently invested in Proxima Fusion, a fusion reactor, where they design the magnets with AI. It's interesting, so energy. And quite recently, we deep diving a lot into data centers. Because for running all those applications with AI, you need data centers, and they need software, and a lot of opportunities are rising there as well.
Sounds cool. Maybe let's write a letter to the future. So 1 year later, we are here again having a panel discussion of the AI 3.0 or 4.0. What would be on our agenda? What is our discussion point? What do you think, Christian?
I would hope that we are in the next step, in the next wave also of using Gen AI, using internal data and unlock even more potential for us and our customers.
Stephan.
Actually, I think we are now at the step of combining different technologies together. I think in the past up to now, we are always single-minded. So there's blockchain, there's digital assets, there's Gen AI, there's open finance, there's something. Now, we come to the point that those technologies emerge together. And they merge really into kind of a combination. So therefore, I can go to the metaverse, and I've got my avatar, but I provide this avatar with Gen AI logic, with something where I had some RAG testing. So the avatar is talking just on the information I want to do, 24/7 in any language. And if I want to pay something, I can use kind of digital assets and crypto or stable coins for it. And for the crypto assets, for the smart contracts, I can use Gen AI to have a dynamic smart contract and not a static one. So therefore, we merge technologies, and that's something we are going to talk about in 1 year latest, because now it's possible. And that comes up with new products, new services, something we haven't spoken about this yet, because it wasn't simply not there. This will be the future, I'm 100% convinced.
Cool. Sina, what's on your letter to the future?
I think I take it more simple. I think it would be nice if we onboard more people, because I think here we're now in a bubble, right? And most people have started trying it out. So I think if we bring it across a broad organization so everybody can use it and maybe save 10, 20% on admin tasks, that would already for me be a big achievement, you know, that we have more monthly active users, that we increase the user base. I'm also, you know, develop use cases, but I think to bring it in a broad organization, because many organizations are stuck with, as you mentioned, proof of concepts or one use case, but that we grow the use cases, but also the user population. I think that would be on my agenda. Very simple, but, you know, to have more users.
And your letter?
Yeah, so one not AI related, two AI related. One is stable coins and money transactions with stable coins, as it's way, way cheaper. So that's actually a blockchain application, which is interesting. And then we have security. So when the adoption comes and also misuse comes, so AI security. And the third thing would be all things agents, automating processes.
Yeah. Okay.
And please, agents with wallets so they can pay by themselves, and we've got a proper payments process.
Without any people. Yeah. So I would like to approach the end of our panel discussion, maybe with a wish. What would be your wish for the future, for the next half a year? Make it concrete.
Okay, so everybody here in the room tries out AI applications and push them in their organization, because that helps a lot of startups to gain traction, and try to be against regulation as best as possible.
And your wish?
I think that we have more trust also in our European systems, in European startups. We also have a good ecosystem here. We have smart people here. So it's not always the big US vendors or now Chinese that do the best models. I mean, in our discussion, we see a lot, you know, that, for example, Microsoft is a trusted partner. I think that's fair, but we also have good companies here in Europe. So I wish that we are a bit prouder of what we achieve. And I count Switzerland now as Europe, so that we're a bit proud of what we do in Europe. And we invest here We push also startups here. I think that would be my wish for the next half year and beyond.
Let's continue with you, Stephan.
Let's just do it.
Do it.
Simply, let's just do it because it's there, we can use it, and please ignore all people, even your CEO, if they tell you it's not working. Because that's the stop of everything. So let's just do it. It's working, the more we work with it.
Yeah, I would like to invite everyone to be an ambassador also in their company in order to push AI forward, because that cannot only be done by one person, by one team, by a centralized team. Everyone is involved, needs to be involved. So try it out and have fun with it.
Okay, cool. So we are here and happy to connect. I want to say thank you to all. So it's a fruitful discussion we had. Thanks for the panel. Thank you for your attention. And see you soon. Thank you.